You're listening to the Best Today podcast. I am your host, Shantae Grant. This is episode 190, and today I'm answering a question from one of our listeners and community members. Let's get started. Welcome to the Best Today podcast. I'm your host, Shantae Grant, creator of the Best Today Guide and owner of the Best Today brand, where we equip women with resources to help you show up as your best one today at a time. If you're ready to trade chaos, comparison, and busy for intentional living, you are in the right place. We believe that intention begins with first knowing who you are and what you want. Here on the podcast, we'll have conversations together about topics that matter to you on the journey of becoming, because we know that being your best leads to doing your best. So welcome to the podcast created to help women all across the globe proclaim, this is what my best today looks like. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Best Today podcast. I am your host, Shantae Grant, and today I am delighted to answer a question that I think segues really beautifully from last week's episode. So if you haven't listened to episode 189 last week, I talked more so about how to do what you set out to do each week. And this is, I thought, a really great question that I thought would be good to follow that. And here's the question that came in from our community and podcast listening audience. It says, I have a question about weekends. When you have a job where you expend a lot of mental energy and you have reduced capacities on the weekends, what do? I use all of my willpower and self-control during the week, and on weekends, I'm spent. How do you honor your capacity or lack thereof and still do what needs to be done? So this is a really great question, and likely whatever it is you do that fills your time during the week, you might be able to relate quite heavily to this question. And so I just want to share a few initial thoughts and then continue the conversation over in the Best Today community, because I think this is a great topic to continue discussing, which really is true of all the episodes, but we're going to do that. So if you're not a member of the Best Today community, today's the day to join. Go to besttodaycommunity.com. We also have it linked right here where you're listening, because I really do want to share more, but because you can only do so much on a podcast episode. So this is when I want to dig in more, but let's start with a few things that came to mind as I read through this question. One of the first things that came to my when I read it, it says, I use all of my willpower and self-control during the week and on weekends. And by the end of the week, I'm spent. One of the things I need you to understand is how important self-control is. And when we talk about self-control, we're also in that same bucket falls self-integrity. Self-integrity meaning you're going to do the thing that you said you would do. If no one is there to hold you accountable, just your word to yourself alone is going to be the thing that helps you to sustain. And self-integrity, self-control is very important. And I understand what you may mean. And by you, I mean universal you, not just the person who asked this question about kind of, I just have to let self-control go. But self-control is not something that we can relinquish, right? It doesn't mean that you're always pushing, you're always doing. Self-control is also what tells you to slow down and to stop, right? Self-control works for you at all times. And it's not something where I don't want you to look at self-control as I only have self-control in these environments or during this time, because then you're going to look at self-control as that's the thing that keeps me going. No, self-control is also the thing that tells you rest, take care of yourself, sleep, eat, get out of that unhealthy relationship. Here's a red flag, right? Self-control is telling you to do the things that you know are best for you. And not all the time, I was going to say, are those things to be doing something, right? So I wrote in my note, let's see, we want to, instead of releasing self-control, what we want to do is sometimes you want to loose the reins on your responsibilities for a designated amount of time so that you can pick up other things that matter. But that is still self-control, because I consider rest, taking care of myself, sleeping, eating, moving my body, eliminating stressors as responsibilities that are actually far more important to me than my responsibilities for at work. So as much as I value the work that I get to do, the things that I do that take care of myself, eliminating stressors, doing those things is me exerting and exemplifying self-control. And those things are actually far more important to me than the things that I think a lot of people think about self-control, about, like, in this context of this question. So I don't want you to think that self-control is something that that is only displayed when we're making ourselves do something we want to do or not do something we don't want to do. Instead, I want you to look at it as self-control is also ensuring that I am making sure myself does the things that are necessary for the full betterment of me, which look like slowing down, resting, stopping, saying no to that thing, quitting, saying, you know what, thought I had capacity for that, don't, or thought I was going to enjoy that, don't, and clearly, I mean, in a way that's done with integrity, but that's self-control as well. And so self-control isn't just when I let it, because I think what I don't want to happen is we go the other way and you say, well, I'm going to let self-control go. And that means I'm just going to do all these things that I actually know are no good for me. I'm going to eat all the things I want to eat. I'm going to just sit here for 48 hours and not move. I'm going to and it's not either side of the spectrum. It's very much so what's happening in between. And all of that requires our self-control. Hopefully that made sense what I wanted to say about that. If it doesn't, come ask me a question in the community. But I want to be very clear that self-control isn't something that we can relinquish, but it's also not a thing we use to punish ourselves or to keep us going. That's not what self-control does or is, okay? So knowing that, now let's talk about our energy. Our energy is a renewable resource, which is really great, which means we have the ability to store it up. Then we do things that make it drop down, and then we can restore it, right? And that's a beautiful thing that we get to do multiple times, like many times throughout any given day, week. So one thing that's really important is for you to understand what helps you to replenish your energy and what drains it, so that you can ensure that you're doing the things, adding the things that give you energy, particularly if you're in a time and space like the week that has a lot of activity that removes it, takes it out of you, right? And that's everything. That's life. That's not a negative thing. Just living our daily life requires energy, right? It requires energy for me to get out of the bed, stand up, and walk somewhere. It requires energy for me to have conversations, to do things. It requires energy for me to write a podcast episode and sit here and then deliver it, So all the things we're doing are requiring energy, but also what are those things that are going to fuel you back up, and trying to make sure you're fueling yourself before you hit low. And I'm talking about that in the context of your week, so that we don't get to the weekend and we feel like we are literally hanging on by a thread. So that's the first thing, is don't look at your weekends as this is when I replenish. I replenish throughout the day or throughout the week, so that the weekend is a continuation of that practice. Now, the weekend might afford you more time to do more of those replenishing things, but I don't want you to look at kill myself Monday to Friday, refill for 2 days, kill for 5. That's very off, quote unquote, balance. So, and I don't want you to have that view either. And so that's something I also want to make really clear, that we are continuously renewing our energy, because we understand that just living life is also taking out. And we want to, it's kind of like your gas tank. Don't wait till that little light come on. When you see it at half, when you kind of start to feel, and for me, my body will let me know. My mind will let me know. There are different triggers or things that I can see or think or feel. And I'm like, oh, we must be getting close to time to refill. And thankfully, I've set my life up in a way that the things that fuel me are designed in my day in life, right? So that's why I'm always in really overflow. And when you do the work that I do, I have to be in a place of overflow, because I'm giving you what is extra, right? I'm giving you what, after I am completely full, and I'm still feeling myself and feeling F-I-L-L, not F-E-E-L, filling up my own self, I'm able to now pour into others, because that is part of what I was created to do literally in this earth, but also, and because of that, that's why I have made it the work that I do, right? And so it's really, really important. If you are in a position of serving others, if you are in a place of leadership, you've got to be full, because You want to be serving people out of what's extra, out of your surplus, not because otherwise that's a really fast way to always feel drained, because you're actually serving out of the things that are actually supposed to be sustaining you. So rather than feasting and feeding off the things that are supposed to sustain you to do what you're here to do, you're giving that to other people. And now you don't actually have a full place to give from. And it's going to affect the things you give. Let me know if that makes sense or not to you. And so being in a place of overflow is really important, in particular if you are in a place of service and or leadership.
At Best Today, we exist to help women just like you be your best one today at a time. So each week on the podcast, we are going to highlight your stories and your voices. So let's see what's in the inbox today.
Today, we have a 5-star review of Compass versus the Clock workshop from Catherine Boyd, who writes, Shantae's Best Today workshops never disappoint. And the September workshop, Compass versus the Clock, was no exception. The concept of a compass has helped me to visualize whether my choices each day are guiding me in the direction I desire to go in life, or am I making choices that are sending me in the totally opposite direction I want to go? And what changes can I make to get back on track? A well-defined compass can help me make more intentional use of the clock. Sometimes I do feel like I am fighting against the clock, so this workshop was exactly what I needed right now. Thank you for offering these workshops. Well, Catherine, you know you are more than welcome. And you can go experience this workshop right now, the very same one that Catherine went through live. We have that recording ready for you, along with the workshop to do the exercise right now, available for you at besttoday.co. We've made it really easy. It's linked right here in the show notes as well. So you can click on that and you can get started with the Compass versus the Clock workshop within the next 60 seconds. Yeah, just go. And once you sign up, access will be sent to your inbox. Again, that's the Compass versus the Clock workshop. You can also read more 5-star reviews by going to besttoday.co and clicking on Compass versus the Clock. A thing that came to mind also as I read this question was in college and in law school. I had a very strict practice, and I didn't have any way of articulating why I did it. It was really based on how I knew I felt and how I am wired. I refused, and I mean refused, to do any work after my last class on a Friday. I'm not studying. I'm not writing no paper. I'm doing nothing. I literally would rather take the remainder of Friday off and work all day Saturday. And that's because I realized that for me, I needed a break. I'm happy to get back down and get what needs to be done. But for me, Friday after working was my break. I will no longer work the rest of the night. And if tomorrow calls for it, I will show up to it refreshed. So I needed that break in between. I knew I had just reached my capacity for the week or for the day. And so for me, Friday evenings, afternoons were about replenishing, releasing myself from life as a student and those responsibilities. And then I would regroup if necessary and be good, bright and early on Saturday, ready. And I felt like I was then in a place where I could, again, now I'm showing up in overflow to give to this work, as opposed to I'm going to be giving y'all the little bare minimum at the end of the school week. Particularly in law school, which is extremely demanding. You go in on a full battery and you leave. You have to find ways again to recharge. But I use it as an example because I understand, one, it's a lot easier when I was just a student. I had no additional responsibilities. My only responsibility was to keep myself alive and make good grades. What a time to be alive, right? Oh, the days. But clearly, most likely, that those of you who are listening, I would say over 85% of you, that's not your life. And for maybe about good 15% of you, maybe that is, maybe you are a student. But I use it as an example of understanding where I needed to insert a clean break so that I could pick back up the next day. And so maybe that's something that you need to think about, how that looks for you in your life. Is there a place where you need to put a hard stop? And then you pick back up, and that picking back up might be on the weekend. And maybe you're trying to push yourself too much during the week instead of spreading it out. And it can be whatever those things are that matter to you that need to be done. But I'm going to come back to this. And I really feel like every one of my episodes could probably be really categorized into probably one of 7 messages, maybe one of 3, one of 4. But one of those is this. So I'm going to say it in this episode. For most of you listening who might think this is a problem you have when you're trying to think about, okay, how do I fit everything on the weekends? Baby, you need to commit to doing less or even nothing. You need to commit to doing less or even commit to doing nothing. Now, when I say this, some of y'all, you're like, this sounds unfathomable. I have to play 14 sports. I have to run this. I have to volunteer for this. I have to be on that. I have to do these. I have to go to Goodwill. I have to. Do you have to? And who told you that? Is my first question. Sometimes you are in a season where you need to keep your commitments low to none at all. Because perhaps for you, your weekends are your opportunity to replenish, to organize and prepare for the upcoming week, to connect with yourself and to the people who you're closest with. And at some point in time, I believe every human is in a season like this. And it's probably multiple times. And sometimes it's a season in a season. Like I'm in this season, but in this moment, in this season, I have to commit to absolutely nothing else. Right. And so is that what's happening for you? Is it that the reason your weekends feel like you just kind of meld into the earth and you can't do anything, and then late Saturday or Sunday hits and you feel like, oh, I haven't done anything, I have to now rush and get everything done, and now that chaos is going to pour into your week? Is it because you haven't actually articulated what your weeks look like before the weeks begin? Because when we plan our weeks on Sundays, right, we're planning for the whole week, the weekend too. Is it that you've taken on far too much, that you're not spreading things out and you're trying to jam things in Monday through Friday? Or you're not using your weekends to say, okay, well, Monday through Friday, especially if you have to work at a physical place and you're there and then you come home and you do your evening and all that. On Saturday and Sunday, or maybe Friday evening, I'm specifically using that for X, Y, and Z. I will not put this is what boundaries sound like. I will not do X type of activities on Friday night. I will not do X type of activities on Saturday, and you get to decide what that is. For me, for instance, it was I will not do work on a Friday night. And that's pretty still true, right? That is, if there's any time when I'm going to tell you in a week I'm not going to do work, it's going to be Sunday morning and it's going to be Friday night. It ain't happening. Now, if I have an event, clearly that's something. But as a general, I can tell you that's not happening. And it's just something, and that might just still be from the practices from when I was in school. It's something so sacred about that time. Where can you put those boundaries? For instance, on Friday nights, I'm not doing anything that's not making connections with me or people I love. On Saturday mornings, I'm not doing anything that's related to any type of responsibility. I'm creating maybe your own little Sabbath, your own little time from Friday, say from 5, Saturday for 5. I'm doing nothing but the things that I have deemed as replenishing for me and my family, and whoever that might be. And so those are some ideas. And that's why I say, let's talk about this some more over in the community. And I'm going to also I talk about this in episode 165, where I'm helping people to plan their days who have a lot of volatility in their days. Maybe you do your weekends when you plan it that same way. What's non-negotiable, what's flexible. And so that way, the flexible things, you don't tie your emotional strings to it. It might happen, it might not, right? But the non-negotiable, those are the things you're going to make commitments to do. But really, I want to encourage you to reevaluate what you're giving your precious time to, making sure you view your weekends to be just as important and intentional as the weekdays. Just because you're not going to a specific job, that makes it seem as though your life is your job and that's what matters. And so you plan that with care Monday through Friday. And then your weekends are just, because it's not tied to work, they can be whatever. They can be trash. They can be thrown to the waters. And I want you to think differently and value yourself more, because you're more than a job you work. That's not who you are. It's a thing you do. And so I think a lot of times that's why we divide Monday through Friday versus Saturday and Sunday when it's 7 days of a week. And I want you to think about how you can harmonize them and how you can prioritize intentionality with even more care than you do Monday through Friday, if not at least the same amount, right? All right. Those are my initial thoughts. Let's talk about it more over in the Best Today community. We'll do a post and we'll talk some more about it in the community under the Best Today podcast tab. Thank you for listening today, and join us over in the Best Today community. It's the one place to find me. I'm telling you, as you will see, as the days continue to push forward, you're not going to find me anywhere else unless you hire me for something in person outside of the Best Today community. So I want to see you over there. Go to besttodaycommunity.com or besttoday.co/community, or just the easiest thing, click where you're listening. We got it linked for you. Thank you for being present for today's episode of the Best Today podcast. Make sure you also subscribe to my online publication, For Those on the Journey, which can be found at forthoseonthejourney.com. We've also linked that for you here, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now. This podcast is provided for you every week by Best Today, where we are on a mission to help you to live and work well. We do this by creating resources that bring intention to how you plan, schedule, work, and live. You can get started in one of 3 easy ways. First, by taking our product quiz at besttoday.co/quiz. 2, joining us in our online community, the Best Today community, at besttoday.co/community. Or 3, connect with us through email at besttoday.co/email, all of which are linked below in the show notes. To learn more about our company and what we do, visit besttoday.co and join thousands of customers around the world pursuing a life of intention, one today at a time.